Clara sat cross-legged on a blanket spread across the lush green grass of the park, her sketchbook balanced on her lap. The sun hung lazily in the sky, casting a warm golden hue over the world, as if nature itself conspired to enhance her joyful afternoon. She was a vibrant young woman of 20, with hair that danced with the wind and eyes that sparkled with dreams. Today, those dreams spilled onto the pages of her sketchbook, as her pencil captured the beauty around her. The children playing tag, the elderly couple sharing a quiet moment, and the vibrant flowers that seemed to bloom just for her. "Look at that one, Clara," her friend Lily exclaimed, pointing at a particularly lively patch of daisies. "You have to draw them. They're practically begging to be captured." Clara looked up, her laughter ringing through the air like bells. "I can't help it, can I? Nature is my greatest muse." She quickly sketched the flowers, her hands moving deftly as if in a dance. The lines flowed effortlessly, each stroke breathing life into her artwork. As she finished, Clara leaned back on her elbows, admiring her work. It was moments like this, surrounded by the laughter of friends and the beauty of nature, that made her feel truly alive. "What do you think?" she asked, gesturing to the sketch. Lily leaned in, her eyes wide with admiration. "It's beautiful, Clara. You have such a gift. I sometimes wonder if you realize how talented you really are." A soft blush crept over Clara's cheeks. "Thank you, Lily. But it's just a hobby, really." She tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, the weight of her family's expectations creeping back into her mind. "I don't think my family would ever see it that way." Lily's expression turned serious. "You deserve to pursue your dreams, Clara. Don't let anyone, especially not your father, tell you otherwise." Clara sighed, her smile fading slightly. "I know, but my father—" She trailed off, the thought of her father's rigid expectations tightening around her like a vice. General Harrison had always been a man of duty, and Clara was expected to follow suit. "He wants me to marry well, to secure our family's reputation. Is that all you want?" Lily pressed, her voice filled with concern. "A loveless marriage to a man you barely know." Before Clara could respond, a sudden chill swept through the air, cutting through the tranquility of the afternoon. She felt a shiver run down her spine, an instinctual warning that something was about to change, something she couldn't quite grasp yet. "Let's not talk about that now," Clara said, forcing a smile. "Look at the sky. It's perfect for more sketches." They spent the next hour lost in laughter and art, but Clara's heart was heavy with the impending reality that loomed over her life. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the park, Clara reluctantly packed her things. She felt as though she were leaving a piece of herself behind, trapped in a world that would soon constrict her spirit. Later that evening, as Clara sat at the dinner table, she could feel the tension in the air. Her father, a tall, imposing figure with a stern expression, sat at the head of the table, his presence commanding respect and fear alike. Her mother, a frail woman often lost in the shadows of her husband's dominance, glanced nervously between Clara and her father. "Clara," her father began, his voice gravelly and authoritative, "there's something important we need to discuss." Her heart raced, a sense of dread pooling in her stomach. "What is it, father?" she asked, trying to keep her tone steady. He exchanged a look with her mother, a silent communication that sent a chill through Clara. "You are to be betrothed to General Harrison." "Betrothed?" Clara echoed, the word tasting bitter on her tongue. "But I don't even know him." "That is of no concern," her father replied brusquely. "He's a man of stature and respect. Your duty is to our family, Clara. This marriage will strengthen our position." Clara's breath caught in her throat, the weight of his words crashing down on her. "But I want to pursue my art. I want to live my life." "Your life is no longer yours to live," her father snapped, his voice unforgiving. "You will marry him, and you will do so with grace." Tears pricked at the corners of Clara's eyes, but she blinked them away, unwilling to show her vulnerability. "What about my happiness?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "Happiness is a luxury, Clara. We live in a world of duty and honor." His tone softened slightly, but the iron grip of his authority remained unyielding. "You will learn to accept this." Clara felt as though she were suffocating, the walls of her home closing in around her. The idea of spending her life beside a man she had never met, a man known for his ruthless demeanor, sent shivers down her spine. "Father, please." "Enough," he bellowed, slamming his hand on the table. "You will comply, or you will face the consequences." With that, the conversation was over. Clara pushed her chair back and fled the room, her heart pounding in her chest. She needed to escape, to find solace in her art. But as she reached her room, she felt like a ghost in her own life, trapped in a gilded cage of expectations. The following day, Clara found herself at the engagement party, a lavish affair that felt more like a prison sentence than a celebration. The mansion was adorned with flowers and sparkling chandeliers, laughter echoing through the halls, but Clara felt utterly alone. She moved through the crowd like a specter, smiling politely at familiar faces while her heart ached with despair. And then she saw him, General Harrison. He stood with an air of authority, his presence freezing the warmth of the room. He was tall, with sharp features and a gaze that seemed to pierce through flesh and bone. She felt a chill run down her spine as he turned his eyes toward her, a predatory glint flickering within them. "Clara," he said, his voice smooth yet cold, as if he had rehearsed the greeting 1,000 times. "It is a pleasure to finally meet you." "Likewise," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. He studied her for a moment, as if assessing her worth. "I've heard much about your artistic endeavors. It must be a fulfilling pursuit." "Art is my passion," she replied, her voice trembling. "But passion is a fleeting thing, my dear," he interrupted, his tone dismissive. "What matters is duty. You will learn to prioritize it above all else." Clara felt her heart sink, a flicker of rebellion igniting within her. "I've never been one to prioritize duty over my dreams." He raised an eyebrow, a smirk playing at the corners of his lips. "We shall see, Clara. Duty has a way of enveloping even the most spirited souls." As the party continued around them, Clara felt an overwhelming sense of resignation settle in her heart. She was trapped in a life she had not chosen, standing beside a man who mirrored the very chains that bound her. But deep inside, the ember of rebellion glowed brighter, whispering promises of defiance against the fate that loomed ahead. Clara knew then that her story was far from over. It was just beginning. Clara stood in the grand foyer of the mansion, her heart heavy as she gazed up at the ornate, gilded ceiling. The sunlight streamed through the tall windows, casting intricate patterns on the marble floor, yet the beauty of her surroundings felt suffocating. Each day in this opulent prison reminded her of the life she once dreamed of, a life filled with color, laughter, and love. Instead, she found herself drowning in silence, the air thick with unspoken words and expectations. Every morning began the same way. Clara would wake early, the sound of her husband's heavy boots echoing through the hall as he prepared for another day of duty and discipline. She would dress meticulously, choosing her attire to reflect the expectations of a general's wife, even if the garments felt more like chains than clothes. Today, She chose a soft blue dress that highlighted her delicate frame, hoping it would evoke some semblance of approval from Harrison, though she knew better than to expect warmth in his gaze. As she descended the grand staircase, she heard his voice, stern, commanding, as he barked orders to the staff. Ensure the garden is immaculate by afternoon. I want no weeds in sight, and the soldiers will be here for inspection at noon. Make sure they are prepared. His tone left no room for dissent, and the staff moved hurriedly to comply, heads bowed in deference to the man who ruled not only the household, but also their lives. "Good morning, General," Clara said softly, her voice almost lost in the vastness of the hall. He turned, his piercing blue eyes locking onto hers, but the warmth she sought was absent. Instead, there was a cold scrutiny that made her stomach churn. "Clara," he replied, his tone clipped, "I trust you are attending to your duties." "Of course," she answered, forcing a smile that felt more like a mask than an expression of joy. She turned her gaze away, looking out toward the garden. The flowers bloomed vibrantly, a stark contrast to the somber atmosphere of the mansion. As the day wore on, Clara busied herself with the household tasks assigned to her. She wandered through the vast rooms, dusting the ornate furniture and arranging the flowers Harrison insisted upon for appearances. Each task felt monotonous, a reminder of the life that had been thrust upon her. The silence was deafening, broken only by the occasional sound of footsteps or the rustle of a servant's apron. In the rare moments when she found solitude, Clara would retreat to her small studio, a modest room tucked away at the back of the mansion. It was a sanctuary for her creativity, a place where she could lose herself in her sketches. Today, however, as she settled onto her stool, she found her inspiration waning. The weight of her new reality pressed down on her, stifling the fire that once burned bright within her. Suddenly, the door creaked open, and Clara looked up to see Martha, the housekeeper, peeking in. "Miss Clara, is everything all right?" Martha's brow was furrowed with concern. "I'm fine, Martha," Clara replied, though the tremor in her voice betrayed her. "Just thinking. Thinking can be dangerous in this house," Martha said with a wry smile. "You know how the General is. Best to keep your thoughts to yourself." Clara nodded, the truth of Martha's words resonating deeply. The walls of the mansion felt as if they were closing in on her, and the fear of Harrison's reaction to any hint of rebellion loomed large. "I just wish," she began, but the words fell away. What could she say? That she longed for freedom? That she yearned for a life filled with art and laughter instead of duty and silence? Martha stepped inside, closing the door behind her. "You have to be careful, my dear. One slip of the tongue, and the General won't hesitate to remind you of your place." "I know," Clara whispered, her heart heavy with the weight of her circumstances. "But sometimes I feel like I'm fading away." Martha's expression softened. "You're stronger than you realize, Clara. Just keep your head down, and one day, you'll find your way." With that, Martha left, and Clara returned to her sketches, but her heart was no longer in it. She felt trapped, and the only hint of hope came from the hidden room she had stumbled upon the other day, a room filled with faded photographs and memories of a woman who had once held a significant place in General Harrison's life. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the room, Clara made her way back to that hidden space. The door creaked open, and she stepped inside, her breath hitching in her throat at the sight before her. The room was dimly lit, filled with an air of nostalgia. Old portraits adorned the walls, each capturing a moment of joy in a life that felt so distant from her own. Among the photographs, one stood out, a woman with cascading dark hair and a warm smile that seemed to radiate from the frame. Clara felt an inexplicable connection to her, a pang of longing for a life that could have been. She reached out, tracing her fingers over the glass, wondering about the love that had once existed here. Who was she? What had happened to her? As she pondered these questions, the sound of footsteps interrupted her thoughts. Clara quickly stepped back, her heart racing. The door swung open, and there stood General Harrison, his expression darkening as he caught sight of her. "What are you doing here?" he demanded, his voice low and edged with anger. I was just looking," Clara stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. "Looking? This room is off limits. You have no right to invade my privacy," he snapped, stepping closer. The intensity of his gaze sent a chill down her spine. "I didn't mean to intrude," she said, her heart pounding. "I was just curious about the photographs." His eyes flashed with something akin to pain, but quickly morphed into a hard mask. "Those are not for you to concern yourself with, Clara. You should focus on your duties as my wife, not meddling in matters that do not concern you." "Do they not concern me?" Clara asked, her voice trembling with defiance. "You were a different man once. I want to understand you, Harrison." His expression hardened further, and for a moment, Clara thought she saw a flicker of vulnerability, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. "You will never understand me. I am not the man you think I am. Keep your distance from this room and from my past." Clara's breath caught in her throat, the confrontation igniting a fire within her. "But why? Why do you shut me out? Is there not a part of you that wishes to share your truth?" He stepped closer, his voice low and fierce. "Truth? You want to know truth? I have lived a life of duty and sacrifice. That is all you need to know. This is not a fairy tale, Clara. You are my wife, and you will act accordingly." In that moment, something within Clara shifted. The fear that had held her captive began to unravel, replaced by a fierce determination. "I refuse to be just a shadow in your life, Harrison. I will not be silenced." He stared at her, a mixture of surprise and anger flickering across his features. "You think you can defy me? You think you can challenge my authority? I am not challenging you. I am claiming my own identity," Clara said, her voice steady. "You may wear the uniform and command respect, but I will not be a mere ornament in your life. I will find my own way, even if it means stepping out of the shadows." Harrison's expression darkened, but Clara stood her ground, her heart racing with newfound courage. She realized that she was no longer afraid of the man before her. For the first time, she felt the stirrings of hope, the possibility of breaking free from the chains that bound her. Without another word, she turned and walked out of the room, leaving Harrison standing in the doorway, a mixture of confusion and anger etched across his face. As she retreated to her sanctuary, Clara felt a thrill of defiance coursing through her veins. She was no longer just the general's wife. She was Clara, a woman ready to reclaim her power. Clara stood in the vast kitchen of the mansion, her fingers fiddling with a brush, the bristles soft against her palm. The morning sunlight poured through the tall windows, illuminating the faces of the household staff as they went about their duties. She had come to know them all: the cook, with her warm-hearted laughter; the housekeeper, with her wise, watchful eyes; and the footman, who often shared stories of his dreams of becoming a poet. Each person's life was woven with struggles and aspirations that resonated with Clara, igniting the embers of her own artistic spirit. "Clara, dear, could you hand me that pot?" Mrs. Thompson, the cook, called out, her hands flour-covered as she kneaded dough for the day's bread. "Of course," Clara replied, her voice brightening the somber atmosphere of the kitchen. She reached for the heavy pot, feeling the cool metal against her skin. "What are you making today, Mrs. Thompson? It smells wonderful." Mrs. Thompson beamed, wiping her hands on her apron. "Just some bread for the evening meal. But I'm also making a tart with the fresh berries we got from the market. You should help me with it." Clara felt a tug of excitement. As she joined Mrs. Thompson at the counter, she listened to the cook's tales of her youth, of the small farm where she had grown up, surrounded by fields of wildflowers. "I used to paint too," Mrs. Thompson said, a fond smile gracing her lips. "Not on canvas, mind you, but in the way I arranged flowers or the colors I chose for my meals. It was my art." Clara's heart swelled with warmth. "That's beautiful. Art is everywhere if you look closely enough, isn't it?" "Indeed it is, dear. You should never let anyone stifle your passion," Mrs. Thompson replied, her voice firm yet gentle. Clara nodded, her resolve strengthening. The stories of the staff inspired her, reminding her of the vibrant dreams she once had before the weight of her marriage had dimmed her light. As the days passed, Clara found herself seeking solace in the company of the household staff more frequently. In the quiet moments shared with them, she felt a sense of liberation. They laughed, shared their struggles, and spoke of their dreams, creating a tapestry of hope that enveloped her. Clara often imagined what it would be like to showcase her artwork, to have her paintings admired and appreciated. The thought filled her with a sense of purpose, one that she had nearly forgotten. One evening, as Clara wandered through the mansion's expansive halls, she paused by a large window overlooking the gardens. The flowers swayed gently in the breeze, their vibrant colors beckoning her to step outside. She took a deep breath, her heart racing with the thrill of rebellion against the monotony of her life. With a determined nod, she decided to escape the confines of the mansion for a while. Outside, the air was fresh, and the sounds of nature surrounded her. Clara made her way to a secluded corner of the garden, where the sunlight dappled the ground through the leaves. She settled on a bench, pulling out a sketchbook from her satchel. As she flipped through the pages filled with her past sketches, she felt a rush of inspiration. The garden, with its vibrant colors and life, became her muse. Just as she began to sketch, she heard soft footsteps approaching. Turning, she saw Emily, the housemaid, who had become a close friend. "Clara, I didn't know you were out here," Emily exclaimed, her eyes lighting up. "I needed some fresh air," Clara replied, a smile breaking across her face. "What about you?" "I was just taking a break. I've been cleaning the library, and it feels like the dust is trying to choke me." Emily laughed, her voice ringing like a cheerful bell. "Come sit with me," Clara invited, patting the space next to her. "I was just about to start a new sketch." Emily's eyes sparkled with interest. "Really? I'd love to see it." As Clara sketched, she shared her thoughts with Emily, revealing her dreams of becoming an artist. "I want to create something beautiful, something that speaks to people," she confessed, her voice filled with longing. Emily nodded, her expression earnest. "You should. You have such a talent, Clara. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Not even General Harrison." Clara's heart sank at the mention of her husband. "He would never allow it," she said quietly, the weight of her reality pressing down on her. "He sees art as frivolous, a distraction from duty. I can't imagine him supporting anything that doesn't serve his ambitions." Emily frowned. "But you deserve to follow your passion. Everyone does. You're not just a general's wife. You're Clara. That simple affirmation struck a chord within Clara. The notion of reclaiming her identity, of being more than just an accessory to her husband's ambitions, began to take root in her heart. You're right, she whispered, almost to herself. I need to find a way. As Clara and Emily chatted, the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a golden hue over the garden. Clara felt a sense of camaraderie with her friend, a shared understanding of the constraints they faced. What about you, Emily? Clara asked, curiosity piqued. What are your dreams? Emily hesitated, her gaze drifting to the ground. I've always wanted to travel, to see the world beyond this place, she admitted softly. But it feels impossible with my responsibilities here. Maybe it isn't impossible, Clara encouraged, her voice steady. Maybe there are ways we can both take steps toward our dreams, even if it's small ones. Before Emily could respond, a loud voice boomed from the mansion, shattering the peaceful moment. Clara, where are you? It was General Harrison, his tone sharp and commanding. Clara's heart raced, a familiar chill creeping up her spine. I have to go, she whispered urgently to Emily, panic evident in her eyes. He'll want to know where I've been. Emily nodded, understanding the urgency. Be careful, Clara. Remember what we talked about. As Clara hurried back to the mansion, her heart was heavy with conflicting emotions. The general's presence loomed over her like a storm cloud, casting shadows on her newfound resolve. She had tasted the sweetness of freedom, even if just for a moment, and she was determined to savor it. Inside the mansion, the air was thick with tension. Clara found Harrison in the study, his face contorted in displeasure as he reviewed documents. The sight of him, a man she barely recognized as her husband, sent a shiver down her spine. Where have you been? He snapped, not bothering to look up for his papers. I was just in the garden, Clara replied, swallowing hard. I needed some fresh air. His eyes finally met hers, cold and calculating. You have duties to attend to, Clara. You can't afford to waste time on frivolities. Frivolities. The word stung. Clara clenched her fists, fighting the urge to lash out. I'm not wasting time, Harrison. I was finding inspiration. Inspiration? For what? More of your silly sketches? He scoffed, dismissing her passion with a wave of his hand. Clara felt the fire within her begin to smolder, but she held her ground. Art is not silly. It's a part of who I am. Then you should learn to prioritize, he snapped, returning to his papers. You are my wife, and your role is to support me, not chase childish dreams. For a moment, Clara stood frozen, her heart pounding in her chest. The walls of the study felt like they were closing in on her. But deep within her, the embers of rebellion had ignited a fierce determination. No, Harrison, I refuse to let you define who I am any longer. His gaze snapped back to her, shock evident on his face. The silence between them crackled with tension. Clara's breath quickened, and she realized that this was it. The moment she could either succumb to the darkness or choose to step into the light. I will find my own path, she declared, her voice steady. I will not be just your wife. I am Clara, and I will reclaim my identity. The room fell silent, each second stretching painfully long. As Clara turned to leave, she felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She had spoken her truth, and, for the first time, she felt the thrill of freedom coursing through her veins. In that moment, Clara knew that the journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, but she was ready to face them. Her heart swelled with the promise of what could be, the colors of her dreams swirling vividly in her mind. She would embrace her art again, no matter the cost. Clara stood before the grand entrance of the gallery, her heart racing with anticipation and trepidation. The vibrant colors of the paintings displayed in the window beckoned her, each stroke seemingly alive, promising a world far removed from the oppressive walls of her marriage. She had made a decision, a bold one, given her life under General Harrison's strict reign. Tonight, she would step into a realm where creativity flowed freely, where women were not just defined by their husbands but celebrated for their talents and dreams. As she entered, the air buzzed with laughter and conversation. Artists and patrons mingled, their voices harmonizing with the soft notes of a piano playing in the corner. Clara took a deep breath, savoring the scent of oil paint and the warmth of camaraderie that enveloped her. She felt a thrill of excitement coursing through her veins, a sensation she hadn't experienced in what felt like an eternity. She wandered through the gallery, her fingers grazing the frames of paintings as if drawing energy from the artistry. Each piece told a story, a narrative that resonated with her own longing for freedom. She spotted a group of women gathered around a particularly striking canvas, their faces illuminated with passion as they discussed the artist's vision. Clara felt a pang of envy. She wanted to be part of that conversation, to share her own ideas and dreams. "Isn't it beautiful?" A voice interrupted her thoughts. Clara turned to see a woman with curly brown hair and bright green eyes, her enthusiasm infectious. "Yes, it really is," Clara replied, a smile breaking across her face. "I love how it captures such raw emotion." "I'm Lily," the woman said, extending her hand. Clara took it, feeling the warmth of connection. "Are you an artist too?" "I." Clara hesitated, the weight of her secret pressing down on her. "I used to draw, but I haven't in a while." "Tonight is the night to change that," Lily encouraged, her eyes sparkling with determination. "There's a movement forming, advocating for women's rights in the arts. We believe that every woman deserves a voice and a platform to express herself." Clara's heart raced at the mention of the movement. The idea of finding her voice, of standing up for herself and others, ignited a fire within her. "I'd love to learn more," she said, her voice steadying with newfound courage. "Join us after the exhibit. We're meeting at a cafe nearby. It's a safe space for women to share ideas, art, and support each other," Lily invited, her enthusiasm contagious. As the evening unfolded, Clara found herself engrossed in conversation, sharing her thoughts and dreams with women who understood her struggles. They spoke of their art, their aspirations, and the societal constraints that sought to stifle them. Each story resonated with Clara, and she felt a sense of belonging bloom in her chest. The exhibit came to a close, but Clara's heart felt fuller than it had in years. As she exchanged goodbyes with her new friends, a mixture of excitement and apprehension washed over her. She was torn. Loyalty to her husband clashed with this newfound desire for independence. She couldn't help but wonder how General Harrison would react if he knew she had attended the exhibit, let alone consider joining a movement that challenged the very foundations of their lives. The ride home was tense. The carriage rocked gently as it made its way through the dimly lit streets. Clara stared out the window, lost in thought, replaying the night's events in her mind. She felt invigorated, but also acutely aware of the looming storm that awaited her at home. Harrison would not understand, would not condone her desire to step out of the shadow he cast over her life. As they arrived at the mansion, Clara's heart sank. The imposing structure loomed above her like a fortress, reminding her of the isolation it had come to represent. She stepped inside, the familiar chill of the air wrapping around her like a shroud. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the soft sound of footsteps echoing in the grand hallway. "Clara," a low voice called. The general stood in the parlor, his back to her, as he stared out the window. The moonlight illuminated the sharp angles of his face, casting shadows that deepened the lines of his stern expression. "Good evening, General," Clara replied, her voice steady despite the flutter of anxiety in her stomach. He turned slowly, his gaze piercing through her. "You were out late. I trust you have a good explanation for that." Clara swallowed hard, the fear of his wrath creeping in. "I attended an art exhibit," she said, forcing herself to meet his gaze. "It was an art exhibit," he interrupted, his tone icy. "You were not permitted to go out tonight. You know the importance of maintaining our reputation." "I understand, but—" "No, Clara," he cut her off again, his voice rising slightly. "You do not understand. You are my wife, and you will act like it. You will not bring shame upon this family with your frivolous pursuits." Frivolous. The word struck her like a slap. Clara felt her cheeks flush with indignation. "Art is not frivolous, General. It's a part of who I am." Harrison's eyes narrowed, his jaw tightening as he took a step closer. "And who you are is my wife. You will respect that." The air between them crackled with tension, and Clara's heart raced. She felt her resolve hardening, her spirit refusing to be quashed. "I cannot remain silent any longer, Harrison. There are things I want to pursue, dreams I want to chase. I am not just a reflection of you." His expression darkened, and Clara braced herself for his reaction. "You would dare challenge me?" he said, his voice low and dangerous. "I am not challenging you. I am asserting my right to exist beyond your shadow," she replied, her voice steady, though her heart pounded in her chest. "I want to create, to be part of something greater than this prison." Harrison's demeanor shifted, a flicker of something unreadable crossing his face. For a moment, Clara thought she saw a glimmer of understanding, a crack in his icy exterior. But it was gone as quickly as it had appeared. "You will not speak to me in that manner," he warned, his voice cold as steel. "You have no idea what it means to be in my position, to carry the weight of duty on your shoulders. Perhaps you've forgotten what it means to dream." Clara shot back, her courage swelling. "Perhaps you've forgotten what it feels like to be alive." With that, she turned on her heel and stormed out of the room, her heart pounding with adrenaline. The confrontation had left her shaken, yet a fierce sense of empowerment surged within her. She had spoken her truth, defied his expectations, and for the first time in a long while, she felt a sliver of hope. Clara retreated to her room, the door clicking shut behind her, and leaned against it, breathing heavily. She felt more alone than ever, but she also felt alive, a contradiction that filled her with both dread and exhilaration. Her desire to reclaim her art, to reclaim her identity, was stronger than the fear of her husband's anger. As she stood in the flickering candlelight, the shadows danced upon the walls, and Clara made a silent vow to herself. She would pursue her passion in secret, to find a way to express her creativity without losing herself entirely. The road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but she was ready to face them, to navigate the darkness that surrounded her with the light of her own spirit. Clara stood in her small, dimly lit room, the air thick with the scent of oil paint and the faintest hint of turpentine. The walls, once a dull beige, had become her canvas, adorned with splashes of color that reflected not just her artistic spirit, but her turmoil. Each stroke of her brush was a rebellion against the confines of her life, a testament to the emotions she had long suppressed under the weight of her marriage to General Harrison. In the solitude of her makeshift studio, she was no longer just the general's wife. She was an artist, a woman reclaiming her identity. As she mixed shades of blue and green, Clara felt a wave of catharsis wash over her. The vibrant colors danced on the canvas, each hue representing a fragment of her suppressed desires and dreams. She recalled the laughter she had shared with her friends in the park, the warmth of the sun on her face, as she sketched the world around her. Those moments now felt like a distant memory, overshadowed by the oppressive silence of the mansion. But here, in this quiet sanctuary, she could breathe freely, channeling her pain, her anger, and her hopes in her art. "Clara, are you in there?" A soft voice called from beyond the door, breaking her concentration. It was Sophie, one of the housemaids who had become a close confidant. "Yes, it's me," Clara replied, quickly setting her brush down and wiping her hands on a rag. "Come in." Sophie entered, her eyes lighting up as she took in the vibrant chaos of the room. "You've been busy. It's amazing what you've done with this space." Clara smiled shyly, her cheeks flushing at the praise. "I've been trying to find my voice again," she admitted, her gaze drifting to the canvas that was still a work in progress. "It feels good to create something, to express myself." Sophie nodded, her expression turning serious. "You know, Clara, there's more to you than just being the general's wife. You have a talent, a gift. Don't let him keep you in the shadows." Clara's heart raced at the thought. She had become so accustomed to hiding her passions, to living in fear of Harrison's disapproval, that the idea of stepping into the light felt both exhilarating and terrifying. "I want to, but what if he finds out? He wouldn't understand." "Maybe he doesn't have to," Sophie suggested, her voice steady. "This is your life. You deserve to follow your dreams, even if it means doing it in secret for now." Clara's mind raced with possibilities. What if she could truly reclaim her life? What if her art could be a bridge to her freedom? As she considered Sophie's words, a sense of determination began to blossom within her. Days turned into weeks, and Clara immersed herself in her art, painting late into the night when the mansion was quiet and her husband was away with his military duties. She poured her heart onto the canvas, capturing the raw emotions that coursed through her. Each painting became a reflection of her journey, a journey marked by fear, longing, and a fierce desire for independence. One evening, as Clara was adding the final touches to a piece that depicted a stormy sea, she overheard a conversation outside her door. It was Harrison, his voice low but edged with frustration. "They're questioning my decisions, and I won't have it. I am not weak. I will not be betrayed again." Clara's heart raced. She had heard whispers of his past, of a love lost that had hardened his heart and shaped his iron will. But betrayal? It struck a chord within her, intertwining their lives in unforeseen ways. Was the general's coldness a shield against pain, or a mask for deeper scars? The next morning, Clara found herself in the library, poring over books about art history and the lives of famous painters. She was determined to understand her craft better, to honor the passion that had been stifled for so long. As she turned the pages, the stories of artists who had fought against adversity resonated with her. They had faced societal norms, familial expectations, and their own demons, yet they had emerged victorious, their voices echoing through time. "Clara." Harrison's voice interrupted her thoughts, sharp and commanding. She looked up to see him standing at the doorway, his uniform crisp and imposing. "What are you doing here? You should be managing the household." I was just reading," she stammered, quickly closing the book and standing up. "Is there something you need?" He stepped closer, his dark eyes scrutinizing her. "You're always reading. This is not a time for distractions. You know I have important matters to attend to." Clara swallowed hard, the familiar fear creeping back in her chest. "I understand, General. I will take care of my duties." His gaze softened for just a moment, and Clara caught a glimpse of the man behind the uniform, the vulnerability, the loneliness that seemed to linger just beneath the surface. But before she could dwell on it, he turned away, the moment lost in the air between them. As the weeks passed, Clara's art began to take on a life of its own. She painted feverishly, each piece more profound than the last, capturing the essence of her struggle and her spirit. Her work found its way to a local gallery, where a curator, intrigued by her unique voice, offered her the opportunity to showcase her paintings in an upcoming exhibit. The news sent shockwaves through Clara's heart. This was her chance, her moment to step into the light and declare her identity to the world. But with the exhilaration came a wave of dread. What would Harrison say? Would he permit her to pursue this dream? The fear of his wrath loomed large, but the thought of remaining a prisoner to her circumstances felt unbearable. One evening, with the exhibit date fast approaching, Clara stood in front of her latest painting, a vibrant representation of a woman breaking free from chains, her face filled with determination. She felt a connection to the figure on the canvas, a reflection of her own journey. Clara. Sophie's voice broke through her reverie once more. You're not going to let him stop you, are you? Clara turned to her friend, her heart pounding. I don't know, Sophie. What if he forbids me to go? What if he... She hesitated, the weight of her fears pressing down on her. Then you fight, Sophie replied fiercely, her eyes ablaze with passion. You owe it to yourself to fight for your dreams. You have a voice, Clara, and it deserves to be heard. Clara felt a flicker of hope igniting within her. You're right. This is my chance. I can't let fear dictate my life anymore. As the night of the exhibit drew closer, Clara's resolve solidified. She would showcase her art, and she would do it for herself. The thought of stepping into the gallery, surrounded by fellow artists and admirers, filled her with a sense of purpose. It was time to reclaim her narrative, to step out of the shadows. But she knew the path ahead was fraught with uncertainty. A storm was brewing, and as she prepared to face the world, she understood that her journey was only just beginning. The art she created was not just a reflection of her inner turmoil. It was a declaration of her strength, a testament to the power that lay within her, waiting to be unleashed. The gallery buzzed with energy, a vibrant tapestry of color and life that filled every corner of the space. Clara stood at the center of it all, basking in the applause of the crowd. Her heart raced with exhilaration. The paintings she had poured her soul into were finally being seen, appreciated, and celebrated. The whispers of admiration floated around her, wrapping her in a warmth she had longed for since her marriage to General Harrison. Clara, your work is incredible, a voice exclaimed. It was Margaret, a fellow artist, and one of the first friends Clara had made since stepping into this new world. Clara beamed, her cheeks flushing with pride. Thank you, Margaret. It feels surreal to see everyone enjoying my pieces, Clara said, her voice trembling with emotion. She glanced around the room, absorbing the smiles and nods from the art enthusiasts. It was a moment of triumph, a validation of her passion that had been buried for far too long. But just as she began to lose herself in the joy of the evening, the atmosphere shifted. The door swung open with a heavy thud, cutting through the laughter like a knife, and in walked General Harrison. His presence loomed large, a stark contrast to the vibrancy surrounding Clara. The laughter faded, and a hush fell over the crowd as he strode in, his eyes scanning the room until they settled on her. Her heart sank. The anger etched on his face was unmistakable. Clara felt a chill run down her spine as he approached, the crowd parting like the Red Sea, leaving her exposed and vulnerable in the spotlight of his fury. Clara, he said, his voice low and simmering with restrained rage. What in the world do you think you're doing? General Harrison, she replied, forcing herself to maintain her composure. I'm showcasing my art, something I've worked hard on. He stepped closer, his presence suffocating. This is not a place for your childish fantasies. This is a disgrace. You are making a mockery of our family. The crowd, once supportive, began to murmur uneasily, their eyes darting between the two of them. Clara's heart pounded as she realized that this was not just a confrontation. It was a moment of reckoning. She could feel the weight of their gazes, the expectations, and judgments hanging in the air. Childish fantasies, she echoed, her voice rising with defiance. This is my life, Harrison. My passion. You have no right to dismiss it as if it means nothing. His expression hardened, and Clara could see the flicker of surprise in his eyes. Perhaps he hadn't expected her to stand her ground, to challenge him publicly. The crowd was captivated, holding their breath as the tension escalated. Do you think this is a game? You're playing with fire, Clara. He snapped, his voice cutting through the murmurs. You'll regret this. Regret what? For finally being true to myself. Clara shot back, her voice steady despite the turmoil within. You have built a life around duty and fear, but I refuse to be a prisoner in it. I know about your past, Harrison. I know about the woman you lost. The room fell silent, the air thick with tension. Clara's words hung in the air, a bold declaration that shattered the illusion of control he had maintained for so long. A few gasps emerged from the crowd, eyes widening in disbelief. Clara, don't, he warned, his voice low but laced with desperation. You don't understand what you're doing. No, I think I understand perfectly, she continued, emboldened by the support of the audience. You've always hidden behind your uniform, behind a facade of soldier. But you're human, Harrison. You've suffered, and you've hurt others. The murmurs grew louder, the crowd shifting uneasily. Clara could see the realization dawning on their faces, the facade of the formidable general beginning to crack. She pressed on, her heart racing, fear giving way to fierce determination. She was the love of your life, wasn't she? You lost her because of your choices. You buried your pain beneath layers of ice, but that doesn't have to be your legacy. Harrison stood frozen, his expression shifting from anger to something more vulnerable. The hardness in his eyes softened for just a moment, revealing the man beneath the mask. Clara knew she had struck a chord, a truth he had long buried beneath his stoic exterior. Clara, you don't know what you're saying, he replied, his voice betraying a hint of vulnerability. You're exposing things that should remain buried. But they're not buried anymore, Clara said, her voice steady. You've built your life on the ruins of your past, and I refuse to let you keep me trapped in that shadow. The world deserves to see the real you, not just the general. The crowd was silent, enraptured by the unfolding drama. Clara felt a rush of energy coursing through her veins, a sense of liberation that eclipsed her fear. She had stepped into her power, and the audience was witnessing her transformation. You think you can shame me into submission? Harrison shot back, but there was a tremor in his voice now. No, Clara replied, shaking her head. I'm not trying to shame you. I'm trying to free both of us. You've built walls around yourself, but I can see the cracks. I can see the man who loved deeply and lost everything. You're not just a general. You're a man who has been hurt. It's time to confront that. With each word, Clara felt the tension in the room shift. The audience, once mere spectators, began to murmur in agreement, their eyes reflecting a shared understanding of the pain that lurked beneath Harrison's stern facade. Clara, please, he said, his voice softer now, almost pleading. You don't know the consequences of what you're doing. Maybe I do, she replied, her heart pounding. But I refuse to live in fear any longer. I refuse to be a shadow of your past. This is my moment, Harrison. I'm reclaiming my life, and I hope you can find the courage to confront yours. For the first time, she saw a flicker of something in his eyes. Regret, perhaps, or a hint of longing for the connection he had lost. The crowd remained silent, caught in a delicate balance of emotions, as they witnessed the unraveling of a man who had hidden behind his armor for too long. As the weight of Clara's words settled in, she felt a surge of strength wash over her. She was no longer merely the general's wife. She was an artist, a woman reclaiming her identity. And in that moment, she realized that her bravery could inspire others to confront their own shadows. Harrison stood there, visibly shaken, the layers of his carefully constructed armor beginning to crumble. Clara felt a sense of triumph, a bittersweet victory, perhaps, but a victory nonetheless. She had spoken her truth, and in doing so, she had begun to break the chains that bound her. In that moment of vulnerability, the crowd began to applaud, a gentle swell of appreciation rising around her. Clara's heart swelled with emotion as she soaked in the warmth of their support, a powerful reminder that she was not alone in her struggle. As the applause crescendoed, Clara took a step forward, ready to embrace her newfound strength. She was ready to forge her own path, to step into the light, liberated from the shadows of fear and uncertainty. "Thank you," she said, her voice steady, addressing the crowd. "Thank you for believing in me. I will no longer hide. This is just the beginning." Harrison stood there, his expression unreadable as he watched Clara reclaim her life. In that moment, the walls around him began to crack, and he realized that perhaps it was time to confront his own demons. As Clara stepped into the light of her newfound freedom, she felt a surge of hope, knowing that even the darkest shadows could not extinguish the light of determination and resilience. It was a new dawn, and she was ready to embrace whatever came next.